To have you.
Good morning.
I think for me, it's been a while since I hosted you, so it's another deja vu. But let me allow you to do justice to the job. Thereafter, I'll get to do a bit of some talking. The subject is classroom management, and your students, including myself, we are ready to take the notes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, student. Good morning, other cherished listeners. My name is Peter ESHUN, a senior lecturer at the Department of Educational Foundations, University of Education, Winneba. The radio lecture this morning, as you heard earlier on, is for level 200 students reading Principles and Practice of Teaching, what we usually refer to as the PMP, with the course code EDC 232. In today's radio lecture, we will look at the topic classroom management. Classroom management. I will start by saying that classroom management is ranked the first among the 28 factors governing students' learning. And you will find this when you read the well-known research review by Wang, Hattel, and Welbeck, titled Synthesis of Research, What Helps Students Learn. And this was published in Educational Leadership Journal. And if you read on this well-known research review, that is how they concluded that classroom management is the first among the 28 factors governing student learning. And this shows the importance of classroom management in student learning. And the effective teacher is a good classroom manager. So for you to be an effective teacher, you need to be a good classroom manager. Let us look at some definitions of classroom management and also what to do to ensure that your classroom is well managed. Let's start with Mazono and Mazono, 2021. To them, classroom management is a broad term that encompasses all the strategies teachers use to maintain order, engage students, and establish routines that enhance instruction and minimize distractions. I'll go over for Mazzano and Mazzano 2021. They looked at classroom management. They said classroom management, it is a broad term. We'll be talking about it later so that you understand why they are saying it's a broad term. And that term, the term classroom management, encompasses all the strategies teachers use to maintain order, engage students, and establish routines that enhances instruction and minimizes distractions. If you look at their definition, it focuses on proactive strategies that ensures instructional time is optimized. So to them, when we talk of classroom management, then we are referring to all the strategies that teachers use in order to maintain order in the classroom, to engage students, and also to establish routines, or to ensure that instruction is maximized and distractions are minimized. We'll be using some of these as we move along. If you also consider Everson and Winston 2020's definition of classroom management, to them, classroom management, they look at it as actions teachers take to create an environment that supports and facilitates both academic and socio-emotional learning. Everton and Winston 2020, they define classroom management as the actions that teachers take to create an environment that supports and facilitates both academic and socio-emotional learning. I'm stressing on these two because mostly people think that when we talk of classroom management, the focus is only on academics. But it goes beyond academics. They are saying that the actions that teachers take to create an environment that supports and facilitates both academic and socio-emotional learning. And this definition emphasizes that dual purpose, promoting learning and nurturing a positive socio-emotional climate in the classroom. If you consider the standards-based curriculum as is being implemented by Ghana, what we call the review curriculum, the standard, the SBC, the standards-based curriculum, you realize that what we refer to as CEL, socio-emotional learning, is very key. Now the focus is not just on the theoretical things, the academic things, but the totality of the development of the individual. So if you look at this definition, it situates very well that it's the actions that teachers take to create an environment that supports and facilitates both academic and socio-emotional learning. Let me just go through what socio-emotional learning is to maybe let those who don't really get what it is to understand. When we talk of socio-emotional learning, it's a process through which individuals, both children and adults, acquire and apply knowledge, skills, and attitude necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain healthy relationships, and make responsible and ethical decisions. So when we talk of socio-emotional learning, that's the scope. So now you realize that in our educational setting, it's not only the academics that we are focusing on. Because at the end of the day, we are helping the individual to fit into society. So it's not just about the academic thing, but the issue of socio-emotional learning is very key in our modern day education. If you look at the educational needs of the 21st century, it's different from the educational needs of the 20th century. So I keep on telling my students that you cannot use 20th century solution to solve 21st century problems. Right, so if you look at this definition, it's very clear that when we are talking about managing our classroom, it is those actions that the teacher will take to create an environment that supports and facilitates both academic and socio-emotional learning. So what it means is that the focus is not just on academics. I know why I'm stressing that one. It goes beyond just the academics. Because when we talk of social, the CEL is very important in our SBC, the standards-based curriculum. Because when we talk of socio-emotional learning, now we are even 21st century, we are not focusing more on IQ, we are now talking about EI, emotional intelligence. Because we need people who can control, manage their emotions, understand others, so that we can live in harmony. All right. So with this base, you realize that most definitions of classroom management emphasize the strategies, the actions, and the practices educators use to create a conducive learning environment. So when we focus on most definitions of classroom management, it emphasizes those strategies, those actions and practices that educators use to create a conducive learning environment. Now let's consider the key components of classroom management include establishing rules and routines. Very important. Note it, we will talk about it, how to establish these things. So the key components of classroom management include establishing rules and routines, promoting positive student behavior, and maintaining an organized and engaging classroom atmosphere. So when we are talking about classroom management, the key component of classroom management includes establishing rules and routines, promoting positive student behavior, and maintaining an organized and engaging classroom atmosphere. So if we are talking about classroom management and saying that an effective teacher is a good classroom manager, then it means that to make you effective teacher, you need to establish rules and routines. You need to promote students' positive behavior. And also, you need to maintain an organized and engaging classroom atmosphere. So what it means is that classroom management involves setting up a structured environment where students know what is expected of them, understand the routines, and feel safe and supported. So if you manage your classroom, it means that you structure it in such a way that your students know what is expected of them. They understand the routines, and also they feel safe and supported. A managed classroom will let the students feel safe and supported. So we are going to look at how to do these things, how to establish these rules and routines so as to make our learners feel safe and supported. Learning can effectively take place if the learners feel that they are safe and they are being supported. So let us consider what to do. First, establish clear expectations. You should establish clear expectations. And when you are establishing clear expectations, first, you need to set and communicate clear rules and procedures. So the first is for you to establish clear expectations. And when you are establishing clear expectations, one, you need to set and communicate clear rules and procedures. So you set clear rules and communicate clear rules, procedures, and expectations at the beginning of the academic year. Sometimes when we go for workshops and some training sections, and even in our various lecture halls, we let students know that when you become a facilitator, at the beginning of the academic year, you don't rush going to the first unit in the subject curriculum and start talking anyhow. No. There are certain things that you need to do to help you to manage your class throughout the whole academic year. So you need to set and communicate clear rules, procedures, and expectations at the beginning of the academic year. And then you need to ensure that expectations are simple, understandable, and you consistently enforce it. We'll be talking about some examples of rules and some examples of expectations. But the first is that you need to set and communicate it, those rules, procedures, and expectations at the beginning of the academic year. And you need to ensure that the expectations are simple, understandable, and consistently reinforced. And you need to involve students in the rule setting process so that you will increase the buy-in and understanding. So we don't just set rules and communicate. We set the rules with the student. Because when they are part of setting of the rules and procedures, they will comply. So you involve the students in the rule setting process to increase buy-in. They will be part of it, and then they will understand it. So that is the first to do, that is establishing clear expectations. Then also build positive relationships build positive relationships. You need to cultivate respectful, trusting relationships with students, showing that you care about their well-being and success. As an effective teacher who is a good classroom manager, you need to build positive relationships. And building positive relationships cultivates respectful, trusting relationships with students, showing that you care about their well-being and success. So if students know that you respect and then you care about their well-being and success, it's part of managing your class. Sometimes you realize that you go to some classrooms, the same group of students, different teachers handling them different subjects. When teacher A should go to class, because teacher A has already established positive relationship, the class is very well managed and teaching learning activities goes on very well. But you realize that teacher B will go to the same class, the same group of students, they will show different behavior to teacher B because teacher B has not cultivated respectful and trusting relationship with them. So the students don't see that teacher B care about their well-being and success. So you need to build that relationship. You need to engage in active listening and showing empathy to understanding student perspectives. We as teachers, we are facilitators, we are coaches, we are mentors. When we talk of learning, you realize that most psychologists most psychologists agree that when we talk of learning, it's a change in behavior as a result of experience and other things. And that change in behavior, we want to see it in the learner. You are facilitating that process. So if you don't engage in active listening and showing empathy to understanding their perspectives, then it will be difficult for that change in behavior to occur in them. That we will refer to as learning as taking place. So in building positive relationships, you need to engage in active listening. And you need to show empathy to understanding student perspectives. And also, you need to create a sense of community where students feel safe, valued, and motivated to contribute. So in your classroom, you need to you need to create that sense of community where your students will feel safe, they will feel valued and motivated to contribute. Sometimes the behavior of some of our teachers puts the students off. The students feel that they are not valued in the class. And if I feel that I'm not valued in a class, how will I even contribute? Some of the behaviors some of the students put up in class that we are quick to judge them to be stubborn children and others, they are not stubborn. It's just that sometimes we don't create that positive relationships. And if you don't create that positive relationship with your student, for them to feel that they are valued and then they are respected, you can't manage them. So we've talked about establishing clear expectations. We've talked about you build positive relationships. Then you use proactive classroom strategies. You need to use proactive classroom strategies. You plan activities and lessons that actively engage students. If you look at most of the 21st century pedagogies, most of the 21st century pedagogies are based on using the learner-centered approach. You know, we have the two main teaching methods, the teacher-centered and then the learner-centered. If you consider most of the 21st century pedagogies, the focus is on learner-centered. So, and learner-centered has to do with active engagement of students. So, when you are using proactive classroom strategies, plan activities and lessons that actively engage students. And this will reduce the likelihood of destructive behavior. If students are actively engaged in meaningful activities, hardly will they put up destructive behavior. Implement routines that provide structure and predictability. You have to implement routines that provide structure and predictability, helping students to know what to expect and how to act. So when you implement routines that will provide a structure and people can predict, then it will help students to know what to expect and how to react. And then you need to also provide clear instructions and model desired behaviors. If you are managing your classroom, trying to use proactive classroom strategies, you need to provide clear instructions and model desired behavior. I always use this example, and sometimes when I use it, my students laugh. That when you go to our schools, the curriculum itself, all the subject there is a reason for adding them to the curriculum. And there's this subject I always talk about, RME, religious and moral education. When you sometimes go to some of the schools and you see the person who is handling religious and moral education, you ask yourself, hey, so if this is the one who is facilitating religious and moral education, how can we get to our destination? Because you don't see anything religious, anything moral about the person who is facilitating. So what are you modeling? Which desirable behavior are you the facilitator modeling? So one of the things that we do when we are using proactive classroom strategies is to provide clear instruction and model desirable behaviors. One thing we should not forget as facilitators is that most of the things the students pick from us are not the things that we say, but they are the things that we do. So most of the things are the things that we do. Because you can't tell them to go and do one and you will be doing two. All right, so another is that be consistent and fair. You need to be consistent and fair. We've started by saying that you need to establish clear expectations. We moved on to build positive relationships. Then we said you use proactive classroom strategies. And then now we are saying be consistent and fair. And being consistent and fair, you need to apply rules and consequences consistently to maintain credibility and fairness. If you want to be a good classroom manager, then apply the rules and consequences consistently to maintain credibility and fairness. If your learners know that you are not consistent with the application of the rules that you yourself you've set with them, then your credibility will not be there. They will see you not to be fair. And if your learners see you not to be fair, it will be difficult to manage them. So be consistent and fair. Apply rules and consequences consistently. The word is consistently. You need to be consistent to maintain credibility and fairness. Then ensure that all students understand the consequences of their actions and avoid favoritism. You need to ensure that all students understand the consequences of their actions and avoid favoritism. If you want to apply the sanctions to the students, you don't just apply them. You need to let them understand the consequences of their actions. So in setting rules and routines, all these things need to be clear. We'll be talking about some of them as we move on. So in trying to be consistent and fair, ensure that all students understand the consequences of their actions and avoid favoritism. When you don't avoid favoritism, your students, some of them will not like you. And if your students don't like you and they don't see you to be fair, it will be difficult to manage them. And then a fair approach helps prevent resentment and fosters a sense of justice in the classroom. So when you are being fair, then people will feel that, yes, this is how it goes. When I do this consistently, this is what will happen. Not that today when I do it, it happens, tomorrow it will not happen. Then it will be very difficult to manage your class. Then also promote student accountability and ownership. Promote student accountability and ownership. And promoting student accountability and ownership encourage students to take responsibility for their own actions. Encourage your students to take responsibility for their own actions and learning by reflecting on their behavior and making amends when necessary. We need to encourage our students in trying to manage our class. We need to encourage our students to take responsibility for their own actions. They need to learn to reflect on their behavior. Self-assessment, reflective practice. Now, if you look at the standards-based curriculum, when teachers go for workshops and other things, issue of being a modern-day effective teacher should be a reflective practitioner. A modern-day effective teacher, you need to be a reflective practitioner. And if you know how to reflect, then you can help your students to be reflective. They need to reflect on their behavior so that they can make amends where necessary. So we need to encourage our students to take responsibility for their actions. Then empower students by giving them leadership roles and involving them in decision making. So when we are promoting student accountability and ownership, we need to empower students by giving them leadership roles and involving them in decision making. The classroom, it is you, the facilitator, and the learners. So it's a two-way thing. So you can't do everything by yourself. So you need to give your students some leadership roles to make them responsible. And then you need to involve them in decision making. Then develop student self-discipline by promoting self-monitoring strategies. So you need to develop student self-discipline by promoting self-monitoring strategies. So far, we've talked about when we are looking at what to do. We said you need to establish clear expectations, build positive relationships, use proactive classroom strategies, be consistent and fair, promote student accountability and ownership. And then now we're also saying that implement positive reinforcement and recognition. When you're managing your classroom, you need to implement positive reinforcement and recognition. So use positive reinforcement to acknowledge and encourage desired behaviors. I believe that when you started level 100, when you did EduTech, what we call the educational technology, along the line, I'm sure you were introduced to reinforcement and punishment, and you were introduced to positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment, and in a way of revision, I believe that you remember that you were told that we punish to reduce undesired behavior. and we reinforce to increase a desired behavior. So when you are managing your class, you are admonished to implement positive reinforcement. Issue of punishment, if you look at most of the modern day theories, issue of punishment is not taking center stage. It's about reinforcement, whether positive or negative reinforcement. Because we are focusing on desired behaviors. Formal education, we are focusing on desired behaviors. So you implement positive reinforcement and recognition. So we reinforce to increase a desired behavior. And positive reinforcement, as you were told, is simply put adding something pleasant when a desired behavior occurred, so that the child will continue doing that you expect. So use positive reinforcement and acknowledge and encourage desired behaviors. We are saying that not just reinforcement, but recognize those who put up desired behavior. Because when people feel that they are being recognized, that motivates them to continue doing what they are doing. So recognize both academic and behavioral achievement. In managing your class, you don't only recognize only academic achievement. Behavior achievement too is important, because we are not only there for academics, we are there for the total development of the learner. So we need to recognize both academic and behavioral achievement, fostering a positive atmosphere and motivating students. And I always tell students that you can't excel academically when the other side of you is not right. So we need to recognize both academic and behavioral achievement. And we need to use a mix of verbal praise, reward systems, or special privileges to celebrate desired behaviors. Sometimes teachers trying to manage their class become so monotonous. The same every time is just a verbal praise. But we need to mix it. We need to mix the verbal praise, some reward systems, and also some special privileges to celebrate desired behavior. So far, before we go to some of the common classroom rules, so far we've talked about what to do when we want to manage our classroom. Let me just highlight the, the key themes. We said the first is for you to establish clear expectations, where you need to set and communicate clear rules, procedures, and expectations. We also said you need to build positive relationships, where you cultivate respect, trusting relationships with students, showing that you care about their well-being and success. Then we also talked about using proactive classroom strategies, where you plan activities and lessons that actively engage students to reduce the likelihood of putting up destructive behaviors. We also look at you have to be consistent and fair. That is that you need to apply those rules and consequences consistently to maintain your credibility and fairness. And then we also looked at you need to promote student accountability and ownership. Then we also talked about implement positive reinforcement and recognition. All right, now let us consider some common classroom rules. Let us consider some common classroom rules. And don't forget, we said when you are setting these rules and procedures, you need to involve the students so that they will buy in, they will comply. Because when you involve them, they will understand. So sometimes when we go to some of these private institutions who call for these workshops for their teachers and training, we tell them that you set with them. So you go to some of their classrooms, they have those rules and procedures pasted. So every day, every time, the students see what they themselves contributed in putting up. So because they are part of it, And always they see it displayed in the classroom, they go by it. So sometimes when people do the argument that why is it that you go to some public sectors, we have the most qualified teachers, and then you go to the private sectors, they are not qualified, but academically, let me put it like that, let me limit it. Academically, it seems the private schools are doing better. One of the things I tell them is that the major difference has to do with supervision and doing certain things right. Because if you are even more qualified and you don't do some of these things right, still you won't get the needed results. So let's consider some common classroom rules. One of the rules should be respect others. If you want to control and you are setting rules with them, one of the rules should be respect others. So you need to let your students know that they need to be kind, they need to listen when others are speaking, and then they need to use polite language. This should be a rule. It's a common rule in classrooms that they need to respect others. And in respecting others, they need to be kind to others. They need to listen when the others are speaking. If you respect somebody, you listen to the person when the person is speaking. And then you need to also use polite language. Sometimes because we are not trained this way, even at the university, you go to class at the lecture hall, you give a student opportunity to contribute. As the person is even doing the submission, halfway through, somebody will just jump in because he or she is not happy with what the person is saying. That doesn't show respect. So one of the common rules is that you need to respect others. You need to be kind, listen when others are speaking, and we need to use polite language. Then another common rule in a classroom is follow directions. Another common rule in the classroom is follow directions. So you need to let your students know that they need to listen to, and then they need to follow teachers' instructions the first time they are given. If you are a classroom teacher and you like repeating yourselves, not when you are doing recap with the core issues, no. But everything you are fond of repeating, your students will not take you serious. Because they know that the first time that you say it, if they don't even listen, you say it again. So when you set the rules with them, that the rule is that they need to follow directions. Then they need to listen to and follow the teacher's instruction the first time they are given. So if they know that when you give the instruction, it's not likely you repeat, they'll pay attention and they'll go by that. And it's part of managing your class. It's one of the common rules. Another one is raise your hand to speak. One of the common rules is you raise your hand to speak. So you need to wait to be called on before speaking or asking questions during class discussions. So when you set such a rule with them, that raise your hand to speak, they need to wait to be called before speaking or asking questions. That will bring order. So we started by saying one of the common rules: respect others, follow directions, raise your hand to speak. Then another common rule in classroom is keep hands, feet, and object to yourself. One of the common rules that we set in classrooms with this our learners is you keep hands, feet, and others objects to yourself. Thus, you avoid physical contact and respect other people's personal space and belongings. You go to a class, you realize that as somebody is seriously concentrating, another child will just jump in because he or she wants to pick a pencil or a razor or something. So there should be a rule that you set with them that they need to keep their hands, feet, and other objects to themselves. They should avoid physical contact and respect other people's personal space. So you see a child will jump from his chair, go and then perch with another person on the chair trying to... No. You can't do that, and then there will be effective teaching and learning. So you set a rule that they need to keep their hands, feet, and objects to themselves. Then There's another rule with even this, especially with these little ones. Stay in your seat. These are things that some facilitators don't take to be serious. But if you set some of these rules with them and they go by it, you see how you can manage your class and how effective teaching and learning will occur in your class. So stay in your seat. So remain seated unless you have the permission to move around the classroom. So they should stay in their seats. They need to remain seated unless they have the permission to move around the classroom. Then there's another common rule too, that complete all work on time. There is another common rule that we said with our students: complete all work on time. That's you turn in assignment and homework by due date. So if they know that it's a rule that they themselves, they've contributed to set, that they need to complete all work on time, they won't take their homework home, come back to the school in the morning before they struggle to do it, because they know that is not the due time. Then, this is also very important. Use indoor voices. Use indoor voices. It's also a common rule that we set with them. So you ask them to speak an appropriate volume, especially when working in groups. Sometimes now that we are talking about collaboration being very key to our teaching and learning, if you look at this SBC, issue with collaboration is key. This time, most of the activities are supposed to be done in groups, because you agree with me that real world problems are not solved by individuals. We come together, we share ideas, and we solve them. So now most works are done in groups. And if you don't set such a rule that you use indoor voices, you realize that some of these students, the group will be disturbing the whole class. Other groups will not even have ears to listen to what they are doing in their groups. So we set rule. One of these common rules is that use indoor voices, that they need to speak an appropriate volume when they are in groups. They don't need to just be shouting, because it's a group thing that you are doing. The people who want to listen to you are the people close to you. So you don't need to speak on top of your voice to disturb others. So that is also another common rule that we can also set with them. Then there is this rule of that, be prepared. We set the rule with them that they need to be prepared. So they need to bring all the necessary materials. The books, the notebooks, the pens, whatever, when they are coming to class. When they are prepared, they won't go to other people's desks to disturb them. So you set the rule that they need to be prepared, and they will go by it. And then another is respect classroom property. It's also another rule. When you set this rule, they will take care of the classroom materials. There won't be that distractions. People spoiling this, tomorrow that. So respect classroom property is another common. These are all common rules that we can serve to help us to manage our classroom. Always do your best. It's also another common rule that we set in classrooms. Always do your best. Put effort into your work. Stay on the task and show a positive attitude towards learning. Always they should do their best. You need to put all these attitudes in our learners so that they grow with it. And then ask for help when needed. A very important rule. Ask for help when needed. Because we don't introduce these learners early to some of these concepts, some students, even in the university, don't know that when you pick steady habit as a concept, one of the key components is consultation. If you don't know something, you need to ask. You talk to people, they'll tell you, I feel shy to ask. Hey, that's, some will say, when I go to somebody and the person should teach me something, tomorrow you hear that person telling another person that he or she is the one who taught me. I say, my friend, think positive. Positive thinking. If you tell me something and now I know, it's my property. Whether you tell someone or not, I know. That is the most important thing. So we need to be careful with some of these things, some of these ideas, perceptions that we have. So we should have this common rule ask for help when needed. Don't be afraid to seek for assistance. People should not be afraid to seek for assistance when you need them. You need to go for clarification. It's not everything that you understand, but others may understand them. You have peers. So when you need help, ask for help. And then the last but not the least is follow safety rules. The last but not the least common rule that we talk about this morning is that follow safety rules. They need to adhere to all safety guidelines, especially when they go to the laboratories and then when they are involved in these physical activities. So if you set the rule that they need to follow safety rules, then you will prevent them from unnecessary injuries. And that will help us to manage our class very well. So far, at least, we've talked about some of these common rules that we can set in the classroom with our learners. We talked about respect others. We talked about follow directions. We talked about raise your hand to speak. Keep hands, feet, and other objects to yourself. Stay in your seat. Complete all work on time. Use indoor voices, especially when you are in group discussions. Be prepared. Respect classroom property. Always do your best. Ask for help when needed. And then also follow safety rules. Now we will end the morning's radio lecture with some common classroom procedures. Quickly go through some common classroom procedures to end for this morning. We talked about some rules that we can set with them. One is that you need to let them have a procedure how to enter the classroom, entering the classroom. There should be a procedure, the way the learners should enter the classroom. They need to enter the classroom quietly, take on their assigned seats, and get materials ready immediately. There should be a procedure to go through. You don't just come to class and start misbehaving. No, you come, you go to your seat, you pick whatever is needed for the lesson, and then you get ready. So there should be a procedure how they should enter the classroom. There should be a procedure beginning a class. Once seated, they should have all the necessary materials ready and pay attention to instruction. So you need these rules and procedures to manage your class. There should be a procedure on turning in assignment. How do they turn in assignment? Sometimes you go to these lower early grade settings, you realize that parents will waste resources to get some textbooks and some exercise books. Within 2-3 weeks, everything is off. And parents need to still continue purchasing these books. And meanwhile, when they have a procedure how to turn in assignments, things will be done in order, and it will save the lifespan of these materials. So there should be a procedure how to turn in assignments. There should be a procedure asking for help. So you don't go to a class and ask you the teacher you are talking because a child just wants help, will just start shouting. Madam, say. No. There should be a procedure how to ask for help. And mostly you go to some class, they'll tell you raise up your hand first before even giving opportunity to ask question or giving the needed assistance. And the fact that they are saying raise up your hand doesn't mean the moment you raise up your hand, you start talking. No. You should wait for you to be called before. So there should be procedures for all this in the classroom. How to use the washroom. How to transition between activities. How to work in groups. So we need procedures and rules. Not only the rules, but we need both the rules and procedures in the classroom to help us to manage our class. So we will open the phone lines, and then if you have any comments, any question for clarification, you are free to ask. You can call us on 050-392-3153. 3158. 050-392-3158. You can also WhatsApp or SMS on the same line, 050-392-3158. All right. So we can go over and continue whatever that we are doing. So we are talking about some of these procedures, and you can also have a procedure on submitting late or being absent in class. You can have a procedure getting the teacher's attention, how to get the teacher's attention, how to use electronic devices. We are now in the digital age. So we need procedures for how to use electronic devices.
98.3
Some schools
FM.
are feeling reluctant to establish computer labs because they've seen that in other schools, they get the computers and in no time, everything is spoiled. Because the ICT teachers don't have procedures on how to use these electronic devices. So we need to have procedures on how to use these electronic devices. So this morning, we started talking about how to manage our class. The topic was on classroom management. That is what we've discussed so far for the past 1 hour. It was on classroom management. We started by saying that classroom management is ranked among the first 28 factors, being the first among the 28 factors governing student learning. And I picked this from a well-known research review conducted by Wang, et al. And Welbeck, with the title, Synthesis of Research, What Helps Students to Learn. And this was published in Educational Leadership. And considering all the factors that contribute to student learning, they said classroom management is the first. Because if you manage your class well, all other things will follow. So that shows that classroom management is very important when it comes to student learning. And the effective teacher is a good manager. You can't be an effective teacher if you are not a good classroom manager. So we looked at some definitions. One said it's a broad term that encompasses all the strategies teachers use to maintain order, engage students, and establish routines that enhance instruction and minimize distractions. Then we also looked at one that says classroom management, the actions teachers take to create an environment that supports and facilitates both academic and socio-emotional learning. And I stress on this because we don't only manage the classroom to ensure that the students are academically developed. No. It goes beyond that. It's both academic and then socio-emotional learning. And I just threw a little more light on what socio-emotional learning is by saying that it is the process through which individuals, whether children or adults, acquire knowledge, skills, and attitude. They don't just acquire, they acquire and apply it. And they apply it so that they will understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, and then establish and maintain healthy relationships that makes responsible and ethical decisions. So we are not only managing our class just for academic purposes. We are managing our class to facilitate both academic and socio-emotional learning. Now the focus is more on EI, emotional intelligence. You can be intelligent, and then if your emotions are not correct, you don't feel for each other, you don't understand certain situations, then you are not fit to be in society. So that is what we established, and then we now looked at how to manage our class. And we said first you need to establish clear expectations, where you set and communicate clear rules, procedures, and expectations with your learners. And then you do other things, we talked about them. Then we also said you need to build positive relationships. That's, you need to cultivate some respect trusting relationship with your students, for them to show that you care about their well-being and success. When they know you care about their well-being and success, you can manage them very effectively. We talked about other things too under that. Then we also said that you need to use proactive classroom strategies. You need to use proactive classroom strategies. And then we said you need to plan activities and lessons that actively engage students. And when students are actively engaged, there is a likelihood of reducing destructive behaviors. And I even said that when you look at most of the 21st century pedagogies, the focus is on learner-centered approaches that involves active participation of learners. Then, hello? Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, my name is Pratice from Geography Department.
Okay.
Yeah, please, we talk about engaging action listening as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there are some instances where learners come to report their colleagues, maybe for you to punish them or something. Then when you pay attention to them, within some time, all others will also keep coming, reporting to you. So if maybe you prevent others from coming to you to report cases, it doesn't mean that you are not a good listener as a teacher. Thank you.
All right. So if I heard you right, you said you are in a classroom and a learner will come and report a colleague to you for you to take action, to punish or what have you. And then if you are not careful, they will keep on reporting. So if you prevent that, doesn't mean you are not managing your class well. All right. So in such situation, that's why we are saying you set rules and procedures. There should be a procedure for reporting others not doing certain things right. And when you set the procedure well, it will not interfere with the activities, the planned activities for the day. So there should be a rule. When you set the rules well, it will reduce the destructive behaviors. And when you set a procedure how to report a colleague who is not putting up the right behavior, I think that will not bring any issue. So it's a matter of setting rules and procedures to control such situations. Thank you very much. So we also said you need to be consistent and fair. And then you need to promote accountability and ownership, where you encourage students to take responsibility of their actions by reflecting on their behavior and making amends where necessary. Then we also considered implement positive reinforcement and recognition. And then we now mention some of the rules, the common rules that we can set in our classrooms, where we talked about respect others, you follow directions, you raise your hand to speak, you keep your hands, your feet, and other objects to yourself. You also look that you stay in your seat, you complete your work on time, you use indoor voices, especially when in group discussions. You need to be prepared. And then you respect classroom property, you always do your best, you ask for help when needed, and then you also said you follow safety rules. 98.3. And then we ended up with some of the common classroom procedures that we need to establish. Then we said you need to have procedure for entering the classroom. You need to have procedure for beginning a class, procedure for turning in assignments. We need a procedure for asking for help. We need a procedure for transitions between activities, procedures for working in groups, and then we also mentioned even there should be procedure for submitting late or when you are absent. So everything that we do for us to be able to manage our class very well, we need to set these rules and procedure. I think I'll pause for some few minutes and wait whether we will get any call or any text message, and then we may call this morning lecture. So we are waiting. All right, so we have some messages here. You have Nanayo Atobra Nelson. So good morning. Good measures to undertake in an institution. Okay, I don't know what the person is trying to say. We have Amwaku Solomon. So good morning, sir. I'm watching you live from the Geography Department. Thanks for your service. Thank you too for watching. And then we also have good morning, sir. I'm watching from South Campus, Integrated Science Department. That is Frank Adam Baden. Okay, I think these are the few things. There's no question there, and I think yeah. Usansa. I think I'm not getting what you want to say. So I think these are some few messages that we have. I think basically, hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
I'm George from the social studies.
Move away from your radio. We are getting the feedback.
Yeah, I'm George from the social studies department.
Okay.
Yeah, you made mention that classroom management has to do with not only impartation of the knowledge, but then modeling is also an important aspect of, because the child often will learn a lot of what he sees the teacher doing. And then we see this with very young children. Sometimes they go and learn something from school, and the parent is very difficult to convince them to do otherwise because the teacher sees so. My question is, granted that modeling is so important aspect, do we have a program, a setup of a program to build the capacity of teachers in area of modeling? I don't know how feasible that is, so that because I believe it will help balance the rhetoric of imparting the knowledge, and then introduce the modeling aspect where the practice is also there, and the children will readily see the teacher doing it, and then it will help them to easily learn. So is there a program to help build the capacity of instructors in areas of modeling, and for the practice there, at least? there isn't too much of a problem since we can learn them from books and other things. But how about the modeling? Is there a set-up program to help instructors build their capacity in areas of modeling so they can?
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's a very important point that you are raising. Do we cautiously train teachers to model good behavior? I think basically that is your question. Do we cautiously train teachers to model good behavior? If you look at the curriculum for training teachers, I don't think that you see it clearly there that there is a program called modeling behavior. It is assumed that as you are being introduced to all this issue of psychology, issue of special education, how to treat people this way, the rights of children, the concept of individual differences, child development, it's assumed that as you pick these concepts and being a lifelong learner, you let it reflect in your practice. So you won't get it as a program that when is this time, this is the time we are training people to go and model good behavior. So we won't see it, but we assume that is why we are introduced to all the necessary things that you need for you to put up that good behavior. So it has to do with the individual applying whatever he or she is talking about. It's application of the knowledge, attitude, and skills that you are acquiring. So, and I think it's a good point. We need to cautiously be hammering on some of these things. Because, in fact, when you sometimes look at the behavior of some facilitators, it's too early. I don't need to go further. So it's a good thing that, but cautiously, we don't have a prescribed program that shows that. But it's expected that because you are being introduced to all these important concepts and theories, you apply them. You see, always I tell my students that you can never give what you don't have. No, you can't give what you don't have. So if you expect that you as a facilitator, if you are conscious that you are a coach, you are a mentor, then you need to apply whatever that you are learning. So it's application. That is what letting what we say to reflect in us. That is what is missing. The missing link here. So I like the idea, but I don't think there's something cautious that this is the time that we go and we model people to go and put up good behavior. We expect that as you are being introduced to all these concepts, then you apply them. That is why 21st century an effective teacher should be a reflective practitioner. You need to reflect. You need to reflect. That's the only way you can improve. And then you can be of good behavior to your learners. Thank you very much. I think we are going to end this morning's radio lecture. And I thank you all for having the patience to listen. We will meet in our various lecture theaters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much as